Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Isaac Peck. I'm the president here at OREP Insurance and also the publisher of Working RE magazine. As many of you know, the GSEs have new market analysis requirements that are coming next week. And so that's the subject of today's webinar. I'm here today with Paul Rowe, who's going to be talking about those requirements, what they mean for appraisers, and what you can do to stay out of trouble, how you can meet those requirements and make your appraisal reports defensible and keep you out of trouble. So if you look, you should see a little control panel where you've got a chat box. You can type any questions that you have or even commentary as we go along into the chat box, and we are going to try to get to as many questions as we can towards the end of the webinar. So we encourage you to ask questions. Just type it right into the chat box. And then another thing that we get asked frequently is whether we're going to be recording this presentation. So we are going to be recording it and sharing that recording with everyone who registered. So just in case your internet crashes or you have to check out early, we will be sharing the recording with you either later this afternoon or first thing tomorrow morning. Without further ado, I'm going to turn this over to Paul Rowe, who's going to be talking about the GSE requirements and what appraisers can do about it. Take it away, Paul.
Thank you, Isaac. Appreciate it. My name is Paul Rowe. I've been an appraiser for about 20 years. I live just outside of Chicago, and I work at True Footage. So I want to do some demos, but first we're going to go over the GSE update, talk a little bit about that. We're going to talk about, the struggle is real. Like, what are the appraisers dealing with today when trying to deal with market conditions and analyze a market? We're going to go through the 5 easy steps of completing that with TrueTracts. We'll do a couple live demos. We're going to do an urban, and then we're going to do a rural, and then some additional benefits you get when you run the tool, and then we'll do a wrap up. So let's get started. Okay, so for the GSE stuff, I think the writing's on the wall. The reason I say that, the GSEs have evidence that appraisers are not doing a good job making time adjustments, and they have released some of that evidence. So let's just look at this graph to start. And so the blue line is showing year-over-year house price growth. And so prices have been increasing on average, somewhere between, it looks like 5 and 8%, a little bit lower here. And then obviously during COVID spiked and prices nationwide on average were increasing around 20%. The green line is the percentage of the time that an appraiser made any kind of time adjustment. And so you can see here when prices were increasing steadily at 5% or more over a 5-year period, appraisers were only making time adjustments on average 15% of the time, if I'm being generous. Then COVID, when the markets are going crazy, appraisers were only making time adjustments 35 to 45% of the time. There was a recent podcast where Danny Wiley from Freddie Mac, he went on the Market Moves podcast. Shout out to Mark Verrett. Really good podcast. You guys should check it out. 7% of appraisals have time adjustments. 7%. So we could see here what the price appreciation and things were going on over the last several years, and only 7% of appraisals had time adjustments. They talked about on that same podcast during COVID, the average GLA adjustment rate went down during COVID. And so they looked into why is that happening, and they found that appraisers were using larger comps, but then lowering their adjustment rates in lieu of making a time adjustment. And so why are appraisers not making time adjustments? I think there's a fear, somewhat of a fear, that there's a higher risk of their report getting flagged if they made a time adjustment. But I think now with this renewed focus, the opposite is really true. And so these are real numbers and stats that they've been releasing, and it's clear to me that as a profession, we haven't been doing a great job with the market analysis. It's also clear that the GSEs and their lenders are going to be focused on this, and therefore we need to be focused on that as well. So let's talk timing real quick. There's a little bit of confusion around February 4th versus March 1st. So we have confirmed with Lyle Radke at Fannie Mae that the new guidelines regarding time adjustments are effective March 1st, But the GSEs have stated in the Fannie Mae selling guide and in their announcements, and this is a quote, lenders are encouraged to implement these policy changes immediately, but must do so for appraisals dated on or after March 1st. And just an FYI, we did receive our first revision at True Footage yesterday, where they actually quoted this policy. And so appraisers, I really strongly suggest you guys start implementing this stuff ASAP to stay ahead of the revision game. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Okay, so let's talk about what they said and kind of what my takeaways are from that. And so number one is the trend indicated on the appraisal report must reflect the overall movement of the market based on a minimum of 12 months of data. So if we look at the screenshot here, it is of the 1004, those boxes should be based on a minimum of 12 months of data. And so you plot your sales, the trend line is drawn, you look at where was the trend line 12 months ago, where is it today? If it's higher, that's an increasing market. If it's lower, it's decreasing. And then somewhere in between, you could reconcile as stable. The other part of that is they want that trend to be reflective of those properties deemed to be competitive to the property being appraised. And so you don't want to just use a huge data set that includes sales that were 300,000 and 2.5 million. You want to apply some filters to that data. Time adjustment. So that's what I just talked about, the 12 months, that's a trend. That's checking that box on page 1. However, we still need to solve for time adjustment. So what have they said about that? The time adjustment, an adjustment made to a comparable sale is based on market changes between the contract date of the comparable sale and the effective date of the appraisal. Just on a call this morning where someone gave me nationwide stats on what appraisers are doing here, and I can't remember what it was, 48% of appraisers do it one way, 52% do the other way. I can't remember which was which, but 48%, one group is doing based on the close date. One group is based on the contract date. Please make your adjustments based on the contract date, not just because it makes the most sense, but also because it's in the selling guide. That's how they want us to do it. And then additionally, the time adjustment may be different than the overall property value trend. And so let's talk about that with their illustration. Excuse me. So I don't think we're going to run into this exact situation in the real world over a 1-year period very often. I think it could occur, but I think, a lot of people got upset about this chart. It's a really good way to kind of explain what they want. And so you could see here, the overall trend is increasing. It was lower 12 months ago than it is today, so you're checking the increasing box. However, if you look at comp 2, even though the market's increasing, it required a negative time adjustment. So I hope that this kind of makes sense. They're not saying that you have to have this chart. They're not saying your comps have to be plotted on the chart. They're just trying to give you an illustration and guidance of what they want you to do. Wait 1 second. Okay, so takeaway from that. I think what the GSEs are doing, they're pointing to a deficiency that they've identified in appraisals, and they're trying to provide some guidance and clarity. So they're making it clear, number one, that they expect more reports to have time adjustments. And in order to accurately reflect the market, sometimes those adjustments may need to be nonlinear. Nowhere are they saying all adjustments must be nonlinear or you have to make nonlinear adjustments all the time. What they're saying is if the market is behaving in a way that a nonlinear trend line would fit the data better, meaning that's what's really happening in the market, they want you to make those nonlinear time adjustments. And again, we're not going to see this very often, but what we have seen running our tool in a bunch of different markets is sometimes you see a little bit of a hump going up or you see a trough going down and there's some seasonality going on in there. And so that's what they want you to pay attention to. The key is that the emphasis is going to be on showing your work. We were always supposed to analyze the market and make time adjustments when warranted. That's not new. There's nothing new with analyzing a market and making time adjustments. All they're saying is they've identified that this is an issue and they want to improve it. And so this is going to be a focus going forward. I thought of this analogy. So for NFL fans, it's analogous to one of at the beginning of the year where they put out points of emphasis early in the season. Let's take illegal contact, for example. Every year they identify in the off season, there's things they need to clean up. And so early in the season, they introduce these points of emphasis and there's a huge surge of flags. And then eventually players adjust and the penalties calm down because the players have figured out what they want. And so a couple years ago, it was illegal contact. Now, it was never okay to check the receiver more than 5 years down the field, but they realized that the defensive players were getting away with too much. They were being a little too physical, and so they made it a point of emphasis. This is very similar to what the GSEs are doing, in my opinion. They've identified appraisers are under applying time adjustments and not analyzing the market accordingly, calling back to the 7% of appraisals have time adjustments. But you were always supposed to analyze the market, always supposed to make time adjustments when appropriate. So I think what we're going to see is a surge in revisions. Appraisers are going to use tools similar to TrueTracts to help them do this really good analysis, provide the charts, provide the time adjustments, and it's going to elevate the credibility of the entire industry. And then a side note, I think the GSEs have also signaled that this idea of show your work, which is the new thing here, for feature adjustments may be coming next. But the show your work, that's the new thing. And appraisers have said, but do I have to include a chart? You don't have to, but why would you not? Like, it's just too easy to do that these days, to create a chart. And so if you don't create a chart, but you're typing out a paragraph or two about how you analyze the market and what it's doing, and it just seems like it's a more efficient way and it's a better way to show to your reader what's truly going on in the market. So you don't have to provide a chart, but you do have to show your work. You have to show them, if I reconciled stable, how did I get there? If I said increasing, how did I get there? And what was the data based on? Okay, so the struggle is real. So I want to walk through an example where we are today and some of the struggles that we, including myself, have dealt with trying to analyze the market, come up with trends and time adjustments. And so if we look at this data, a couple of questions come to mind. How are you going to reconcile the overall trend? And then what's your adjustment going to be? So I think the 1004MC is a starting point for many because it's still required by many of our clients, even though it's been retired by the GSEs. And so we still have to do it on, I don't know, 40, 50, 60% of our assignments because it's an assignment condition. And first I want to acknowledge that we all know the 1004MC is a very poorly designed and flawed form, and I don't ever recommend using it as a basis for trends or time adjustments. I do recommend you filling it out the way you're supposed to when it's part of those assignment conditions, but I wouldn't use it to extract the market trend or time adjustments. I would use a different method to really dig into the market to figure out what's going on and find the source of truth. So this is a common data set that you'll see, and you have to analyze the trend and reconcile those time adjustments. So I've worked with hundreds of appraisers, and the answer to those two questions of what's the trend and what's the time adjustments varies significantly based on a data set similar to this. Many appraisers are going to default to stable. They're going to say, well, it goes up and then it goes down and then it goes up, so it's not clear. I'm going to go with stable, and now I don't have to make time adjustments. Some might say, well, no, it's declining because the 0 to 3 month period is lower than the 7 to 12 month period, and I care about what's happening most recently. Some might say increasing because the 0 to 3 is higher than the 3 to 6. Some of the better appraisers I've worked with, they answer with the most common answer in appraising, which is it depends. And so then what does it depend on? Well, they take it a step further. So let's go through that process. So they say, well, I want to look at, I talk to a lot of appraisers who use Spark, which is prior to TrueTracts, the industry leading way to analyze the market. So they look at the Spark median sale price chart and they look at the price per square foot charts. But sometimes those data sets only include 10 to 15 sales over a 12-month period, so they can't trust that data. And so if we look at these two charts, these are based on the same data set. These are generated in Spark. This is prior to the Spark update, something we can talk about later. But this top chart is median sale price. It's showing a positive 1.8% increase. The bottom chart's based on price per square foot, and it's showing a negative 0.8% per month decrease. And so on the bottom chart, look at the oldest, highest price per square foot sale and the most recent low sale. Maybe the one on the far left was a gut rehab and the one on the far right was in disrepair. It's really hard Is that really the trend? Or are we, is it picking up unaccounted for variables like GLA, lot size? Are they skewing the data? So the limited data points and the conflicting indicators reduces the confidence in the trend. So some may stop here, they put in both charts and they go stable. I don't recommend that, but let's keep going and see kind of what other appraisers might do. So some might keep plugging away and then they realize they need more data. And so they remove all the filters and then they include all the sales in the neighborhood. Well, what's wrong with that? The Fannie Mae Selling Guide says that the one unit housing trends portion of the neighborhood section must be reflective of those properties deemed to be competitive with the property being appraised. And so if we're looking at this data set, is the $300,000 market behaving the same as the $1.5 million market? Maybe, but maybe not. And we've seen that a lot. When you bifurcate those markets and you look at the high end versus the low end, there's very often a different trend going. And so when we think about this, we now have indicators. We have the first two charts. Now we have two more, and we have indicators of somewhere that the market's either declined 9.6% or it's increased 27.6% year over year. What do you do with that? That's crazy. Okay, so some appraisers then might reapply the filters and then they expand the search and distance. So now they go out 2 to 3 miles. That's great because you're going to get more data, but is it relevant data? Are those sub-markets truly competing with the subject? Do they have a similar relationship between the home features and sale price? In other words, is a 3-bed, 2-bath, 1,800 square foot home selling for a similar price in both areas? I can tell you in this example, because I live here, it's not. I don't want these properties up here included in my data set. This is Chicago. If I'm in Park Ridge, I don't want these included in my data set. So I don't love this as a solution. So which chart do you put in your report? What adjustment rate you did? You just did all this analysis. Some appraisers might use sensitivity in the analysis in the grid based on the adjusted sale prices of the comps as a tiebreaker. So they save the time adjustments for last and they go, okay, I got these 4 different indicators. Let me see what would tighten up the grid the most. And I'm going to use that as the indicator. Typically not a great idea to rely on 3 to 5 comp sales data points for a market trend. And also time adjustments really should be applied prior to figuring out your feature adjustments. You want to normalize the sale price for time, then you try and extract out the feature adjustments. So you do all that work. Now you got to type up the commentary explaining everything you just went through and how you reconcile. Obviously, there's a lot going on that is not fun. I've been there. I feel your pain. It's tough. So I think what we want is we want one definitive process that we can trust for our trends and our time adjustments. We go through that process, and when we're done, we have confidence in the trend and the time adjustment, so we can check that list, that off our list of variables to solve. So let's talk about what this tool will need to do to give us that. Quick side note, this is on I mentioned this before. So we had that adjustment, or we had that revision yesterday. We received the first time adjustment revision. The appraiser, I looked into the report, had great analysis, had 4 different sale price trend charts. He had his neighborhood data set, which included all sales. He looked at it, median sale price and price per square foot. He had another one where he just looked at competing properties within the neighborhood. Again, median sale price, price per square foot. He reconciled to the one that had indicated increasing 0.3%. They sent a revision. I'm going to read the revisions, kind of wordy, but I don't want to just say we got a revision without telling you what it was. I want you guys to believe me that we truly got this yesterday. It said the overall property value trend may not be linear throughout the time frame, resulting in the market conditions adjustments applied to the individual comparable sales that differ with the overall property value trend. Depending on when the contract date of the comps occurred, it is possible to have positive, negative, or no adjustments applied to the different comparable sales in the same report. The appraisal must include the methodology used in determining time adjustments and what those were applied to each comparable sale. And then they had another statement separate that said, additionally, the graphs provided indicate barely significant 0.1% per month price appreciation, which equates to 1.2% price appreciation per year. Remember, I told you he included 4 charts. I thought that was great. He went above and beyond. He's showing them. I looked at this 4 different ways. I reconciled to this one. Underwriter got confused and looked at the one that said it's up 0.1%. And they said, wait, you're adjusting. Shouldn't that be stable? So just an example of kind of what's coming and what's coming down the pike. Okay, so we want this tool. We want this tool that gets us to the source of truth. We go through the process, and when we're done, we have an extreme amount of confidence that we did this robust analysis. We can trust the results. We don't have to play the game of which chart do I include? Do I include them all? Do I use sensitivity? What does that tool need to have? I think it needs to have a data-driven approach to defining our market area. We need a way to collect more data. If we only have 11 sales over the last year, it's not a very credible trend. We need relevant filter data. It just can't be 100 sales. It's got to be 100 relevant sales. We need trends based on the adjusted sale prices and contract dates. I'll go into an example of that. We want nonlinear trend because that's what they're telling us they want. Again, not nonlinear for nonlinear sake, but when the market is behaving in a way that's nonlinear, we want to be able to reflect that in our reports. We need a way to extract those time adjustments. We want pending sales to fine tune the most recent trends. We need an intuitive way to visualize that data, to analyze it and convey the results to the client. And we need a time efficient process. If I present to you this software and it's awesome, but it takes you guys 30 minutes to run, most of you guys are going to leave the webinar. You're not going to use it. So we need it to be time efficient as well. Okay, so introducing TrueTracts. TrueTracts utilizes advanced analytics and machine learning to elevate how we define and analyze our markets. It delivers accurate data-driven insights, visualized through intuitive heat maps, charts, enabling the appraiser to confidently reconcile the trends and time adjustments that truly reflect current market conditions. 5 easy steps. We're going to go through a demo, but I just want to show you high level. You enter the subject's address and effective date, form type, property features. Define the subject submarket. You apply filters to ensure that you're gathering competing properties. You define the market area, and then you sit back while the tool automatically gathers 2 to 5 times more competing properties. You then review the charts, the dynamic commentary, you make trend decisions, and then you export. You export the charts, the heat map, the commentary, 1004MC data. If you have Total, we have an integration with Total that will go live on Monday. You can throw all of that stuff, will go directly into your report and your work file. This is less than a 3-minute process when you get used to it. And so I'm going to play, what this is basically me doing one. I'm going to do the demo and I'm going to take my time. We'll go through it. We'll explain it all really well. But I just want to show you high level how fast this can be done. And so this is obviously sped up. You can see the real timer down here. I'm entering in the property features. I'm defining the subject submarket. I'm applying filters so that I'm editing and making sure I'm only grabbing competing properties. It's now training a model and it's presenting a heat map. I'm iterating on those subject submarkets based on the data that I was presented with. I've now locked that in. I've grabbed my extra properties. I'm defining my market area. I'm going to analyze all of those hundreds and hundreds of sales. I'm making some decisions on the trends. And it stops at about 2 minutes and 49 seconds. Done. I hit export, and all that's going to go into my report. Okay, hang on. I think I just lost my presenter view. Hang on. Here we go. Okay, so let's jump into some demos and let's do some of these live. Okay. So I'm going to create a new session and I'm going to do a property in Phoenix. So this is going to be the urban example. It's a detached property. I'm going to enter in the subject features. I'm going to hit save and classify. And so now it's using machine learning to analyze 6,000 home sales around the subject that have sold in the last 5 years. So the tool is going to look at sales in the last 5 years and expand out until it grabs 6,000 properties. So let's talk about what's going on with the data. So we have a direct feed with the MLS. So we're getting a daily update of all of the recent sales. We're getting listings, expireds, canceled. We have all that information. And so the tool already knows that. Unlike Spark for market conditions and Synapse for feature adjustments, you don't need to upload the data set. It already knows the data. So I'm going to look at all this. This is the 6,000 home sales. It's grouped those into different clusters, these circles down here. All we're going to do right now is use this as a cheat sheet guide to figure out where do I want to start to draw my boundaries for my subject submarket. And so the tool is telling me there's a 75% probability it belongs to cluster 8. There's a small probability that it belongs to cluster 6. Not going to go into this now, but if I wanted to look at the stats for each of these, I can scroll through and kind of see what all of those stats are. But I'm just going to use this to draw my initial boundaries. And so I'm going to draw, maybe I start here, come over, down. And now I want to apply some filters because I only want to analyze properties that are somewhat competitive with the subject property. And so I'm applying filters to the features. You can see with a red X, that's where the subject lies within the distribution. And every time I apply filters, these reset to show kind of what's left in the data. And so you can gain insights just from looking at this. Year built, like for example, I can see here, I'm not going to look for a ton of comps that were built in the 60s, even though I was built 1962, because there aren't a lot. Looks like most of the properties were built over here. So I'm going to filter that out, 1940 to say 1980. 3 minus, that's saying I only want to look at 3-car garage or less. And then we want to apply and post some sort of a price filter. We don't want to do anything major here. What we're doing here is we're just getting rid of some of the outliers. We don't want to sort by price. That's not a good practice, but we do want to get rid of the outliers. And so if I were to remove this, we had 482 sales in this data set after it was filtered. When I apply this, we're at 449. We remove 6, 7, 8% of the outliers on the high and the low end. I'm going to create the heat map. And this is where the really cool stuff happens. So what's going on right now is the tool is training a statistical model, all of the properties that lie within the boundaries of that subject submarket that also lie within the filters. And it's taking those properties, training that model, and then it's applying that model to every single blacked out outside of this boundaries. So let's zoom in here for a second and let's come over here. So what it's doing is it takes that trained model where it learned what is the relationship between sale price and features, and it used that model to try and predict the sale price of this one black dot right here. And it did that for all of these black dots. And if that predicted that the sale price was 500,000, or let's say it predicted 400,000, but it was really 500,000, then we know that this, after controlling for all of the other features, locationally, there's a difference here, and it's isolated to location. And so it indicates that if you were to use a comp from here, you may want to consider a location adjustment of around 20%. Also indicates don't look here for comps. It does indicate, because there are black dots here, that there are homes here that lie within those filters that I just applied. What it's saying is they're selling for way more. All apples to apples, they're selling for more. So let's zoom back out. Let's take a look at where we are. So let me remove the black dots for a minute. So here's Phoenix. This is Northern Phoenix. I don't know this market, but I talked to some appraisers who do. And so you can see what's going on. One thing we want to do right now, though, is we want to iterate on this subject submarket. This was just our first pass. Again, we want data to guide us. We want it to tell us. We don't want to use our arbitrary bias. We don't want to just use the busy road to the north, the busy road to the west, the busy road to the south to draw our boundaries. We want the data to inform what our boundaries should be. And so I'm going to iterate on this core cluster. I don't like that there's red in there. I don't like that there's a lot of blue. And so I'm going to use this, and it looks like I could go somewhere in here. So I'm going to hover over the SS. SS is subject submarket. This is where you're going to end up finding most of your comps once you're done iterating. I'm going to draw some new boundaries. And what's going to happen now, click update heat map. It's retraining that model starting from scratch. It's going, okay, this universe of properties, train the model, figure out the relationship between sale price and features, and now apply that to the universe of 6,000 home sales. And let's figure out what's going on in this market. And now that it's done that, I feel really good about this being as my subject submarket. Just to reiterate, this is where most of your comps are going to come from. They're the most proximate and they're all in similar locations. I want to quickly say what the dark green is. Dark green means that the model predicted the sale price of those homes within 3%. If it's light green, it predicted the sale price within 3 to 6%. And if it's blue or red, it was higher than 6%, either superior or inferior. And then the level of darkness is in that red or that blue is how different it is. Okay, so now that I have this is where I'm gonna, my subject submarket, I have 480 sales. If I were to come over here and try and analyze the market, it's loading. If I were to look at 1 year, this is what we have. We have 51 similar home sales. But we have all these other sales here that we could add into the data set. Why would we want to do that? Well, we found through testing that whenever you have more data, when it's more data and it's similar, it really improves the confidence of the trend line and you get a much better depiction of what's going on in a market. And so you want to use as much data as you can. So if I were to click on this CS, this is the competing submarket, the tool has learned through its testing that these dark green areas have similar properties, similar home features that are selling for similar prices. And so why wouldn't I want to include those in what I'm analyzing? I don't want to include these red ones over here, but I would love to include these to improve my data set. And so if I come back over here, I've now highlighted that CS. I can turn that on or off. If I turn it off, you see this. If I turn it on, you see how many more sales we got, and you can see what the trend looks like. So in this case, it approximately doubled the amount of sales. Now I have 99 sales in the last year. This is over 5 years up here. This is the last year. So I've doubled the data and increased the credibility of the trend line. And so coming back here, you may say, well, I want to define my market area and I don't want these sales as part of it. This is a completely different market. I don't care if similar properties are selling for similar prices. I don't want it in my data set. We have a way to do that. So you're going to hover over your CS, click the little dotted circle, and you're just going to constrain your market area because by default, this is kind of your market area. You're analyzing all of this. But once you learn, like, I don't want this and I don't want this, you can constrain that. And so if I wanted to constrain my market area to data included within these boundaries, I might do something like this. Again, I am not from Phoenix. I don't know Phoenix. So if you're screaming at the screen, asking me why I'm including this, I apologize. I could have easily just cut it off there. But now I have my market area. I have my subject submarket. I have a competing submarket because I believe that these would compete with the subject. If I were asking my real estate agent, looking for a 3-bed, 2-bath house with X, Y, and Z, and can you look here? And they say, well, I couldn't find anything. Could your realtor potentially say, I didn't find it here, but we have one that's really similar over here that's selling for similar prices to what you'd be buying here? I think that's super helpful. Okay, let's come back over to the market analysis and talk about a little bit about what's going on here. So we have our sale price trend. Looks like prices are going up approximately 6.1% year over year. I want to talk about what's going on with these dots. Couple things. Number one, you'll notice on the y-axis, we are using adjusted sale price. So we're using GAM, stands for the generalized additive model. We're using that to adjust the universe of sales. These 86 sales in the last year are being adjusted for features first, prior to being plotted on the line. GLA, lot size, bed bath, all of that. And so you're going to end up with a much tighter range. I want to show you an example of why that's cool. Okay, this is a different data set, but the top data set, we plotted properties based on raw sale price. These are both the same data set. The difference is this is raw sale price. This is adjusted sale price. Couple things, you notice here the dots are a lot more scattered than once you adjust for sale price. You can see this green shaded area. The green shaded area is a measure of uncertainty. It's this 90% confidence interval. Don't need to worry about that, but it's basically, it's a measure of like how similar is the data and how much data do we have and how confident am I in this trend line. When you start adjusting for sale prices, that green almost disappears because it's so confident what's going on in the market. You also notice that this is kind of cool. This raw sale price indicates an increasing market over the last year because this is 5 years. The adjusted sale price chart shows that that market's actually, once you adjust for features, is actually going down. And think about it. I dug into this in detail. If I was using a comp that sold 6 months ago, and I use this chart, I would be adjusting that up 3 to 5%, a $500,000 sale. Down here, I'd be adjusting it down 4 to 5%. That's a $40,000 swing in value. And so my point is, this isn't just for perception of you did a robust analysis. This affects the opinion of value when you get this right. Okay, so we're using adjusted sale price. We're also plotting based on contract date. Remember we talked about contract date before. We're going to extract the time adjustment based on contract date. Why not plot the sales based on when they went under contract? Now, what that does is it creates a little bit of a vacuum because the homes that went under contract that haven't sold yet, there's a little bit of a missing data here. But we're going to solve that by Monday. We'll have it built into the tool. We're going to have pending sales. And so we're going to include pending sales to really fine tune what's going on the last 30 to 60 days in the market. And in our testing, it's really cool how it fine tunes what's happening and gives you a really good picture as to what's going on. Some of you might say, we've heard this question. Yeah, but how do you know what that pending sale is going to sell for? We have a chart for that. So sale to final list price ratio. We are doing a really good job of analyzing those properties. What do they end up selling for versus their last list price? And right here, you can tell in this market, they're selling at 96.7%. So we simply apply that ratio to the pending sales prior to plotting them on this trend line to predict what they're going to sell for. Again, using market data, letting the market speak for us, not choosing an arbitrary minus 5% to adjust our listings or our pendings. Okay, what else? So we're creating the dynamic commentary for you. I won't go into detail on this, but we're telling you how many sales are included in the data, what the price trend has been, and then we're making this decision for you to start, but you get to change it. So if you disagree and you want to change it to stable, you have that ability to do that. We have these tooltips. I want to point those out. Hover over these tooltips. Those give you a lot of good information about what's going on with those charts. Again, down here, we have another tooltip. We've even built in some suggested commentary. I think this is really cool because this is revision prevention. So let's say that this was up 0.8%. You go, there's no way I'm saying that's stable. It's up 0.8% year over year. It's marked as relatively stable, but you have your time adjustments down here. And if you're not going to make time adjustments because it's only up 0.8%, you want to explain that to the reader. And so we have a way of simply grabbing this suggested commentary, copying that, pasting it into here. And now when you create your export, you will have commentary explaining why you didn't make time adjustments to save those revisions. Okay, that aside, we are going to make time adjustments because the market's up 6% year over year, and that is significant. Down here, we have the indicated adjustments based on the contract date. And so all this is doing is it's saying in February, where were sale prices then on the red trend line compared to today? What's that difference? In this case, it's 5.9%. All you're going to do is Control C, go to total, Control V on the time adjustment line, hit enter. Total automatically calculates that for you. If you don't have total, I'm pretty sure the other ones do as well. And you have your time adjustments for your comp 2 went under contract in October. Highlight, Control C, paste, you have your time adjustment for that one. And this is all going to go in your report. We also have housing supply trends. This is important because you're checking a box again on page 1 that says whether the market is in balance, undersupplied, or oversupplied. This gives you support for why you're checking that box. You hover over the little tooltip and it'll explain to you what we're doing. We are looking at if it's under 4 months of supply, we're considering that a shortage. If it's 4 to 6 in balance, and if it's over 6 months, we're considering that an oversupply. But again, you as the appraiser, you get to control it. We're trying to save you some time and give some guidance. But if you say that no, 2.1 months of supply is in balance in my market, you just simply change it to imbalance. And then you can add whatever commentary you want. But the point is, we've done most of the work for you. And so a lot of times you're not going to need to add any additional commentary. We also are doing days on market. This is important. Again, we're checking a box on page 1. What's the average market time? Is it under 90 days, 3 to 6, or over 6? That's getting based off of here. Obviously, this is less than 90 days. And so that's going to check the box for you on page 1. And it's going to give you really good support as to what's going on in the market. We have 2 different sale to list price ratio trends. This has been a standard for me and a lot of appraisers I know for years to use this, but I've discovered that a lot of appraisers don't do this. And so this is really cool. I'll spend a minute on this. When you include a listing, an active listing in your grid, so let's say comp 6, you're using an active listing. How do you adjust that listing to try and predict what it's going to sell for? A lot of appraisers don't make any adjustment, but what you should do is you should make an adjustment, and it should be based on what's happening in the market. Well, we know that that properties on average are selling for 96.1% of what they were originally listed for. And so if you have a listing, I think it's completely reasonable to extract a 3.9% adjustment and apply it to that active listing. However, if you have a contingent or a pending sale, you would use this because this is based on the final list price ratio. And so this would be a 3.3% downward adjustment to that pending or contingent sale. And again, you can hover over this. This gives you some really good info as to what's going on there. Distress sales we have coming soon, and seller concessions. We're reporting seller concessions when we trust them from the MLS, when they're giving us good data. We've uncovered that a lot of markets have been, we've had a lot of issues with the seller concession. So depending on your market, we may or may not have the seller concession charts. We don't want to give them to you if they're unreliable. And so you'll see something like this if we feel that they're unreliable. Okay, so you have all this, you went through, you did your, we did the first part, we defined the market, we grabbed the really cool data that's not only more data, but it's similar data. We've come here, we've analyzed the market, we've got our time adjustments. This button isn't here, but there's going to be an export button where you simply hit export. Wait, one more thing before I go into that. The other thing you'll see starting on Monday, probably Tuesday morning, maybe Monday night, is when you get done with these charts, you're going to see this. And so this is just giving you the info for, it's 2 different reasons. If you're using total, this is showing you here's what's going to get filled out for you in total when you hit the export. For people who don't use total, we're going to create a PDF of all this stuff so that you can just simply look at it and type it into your form filler. But this is not part of the market analysis report that's going to go into your report. So this will be filled out for you. The highs, the low, the predominant, this will be filled out for you. We have some notes here. These are just kind of some guidance on, you could read that. Top of page 2, this is going to be filled out. A little bit of guidance there. 1004MC, this is going to be filled out. You can make whatever adjustments you want here live. And then when you export, it'll fill that out. Check those boxes. A little bit of guidance. And then the 1004MC, we've created dynamic commentary that will fill out your 1004MC. You are going to have to check whether foreclosure sales did or did not have an impact. But just want to show you, you guys are getting that as well. Market analysis. So when you hit that export button, you create that PDF. It's either going to be, this report's either going to be a PDF for an ACI user or ClickForms or whatever. For a total user, this is going to go right into your report. But what we've heard is, this is really cool, but how am I going to explain this? We've explained it for you. So we're explaining very simply what's going on with the market area and the sub-market area definition, like how do we define those? Simple paragraph about that. We're being completely transparent. We're providing them with the filters that we applied to gather those competing properties. We're talking about how the tool trained the model and how we created the heat map. We're including the heat map, so you'll have this, which will represent, most of the time, most of your comps are going to be in here. We're going to have a legend showing what all the map markers mean, what the polygons mean, what the heat map means in the different colors. We're going to have a little blurb here about market analysis, because now we're getting into the charts. We want to brag a little bit. Like if you're an appraiser and you use this tool and you did this deep analysis, you want the underwriter, you want the reader of this report to see all of that stuff that you've done. And so we explain that to them, what went on there. And then we go into the charts. And so your chart will be imported along with the dynamic commentary, along with the indicated time adjustments, all the other charts. Again, you don't have to include all the charts. If we go back here, if I don't want this chart, I simply uncheck it. It will not go in the report. There's something else I just saw that I wanted to hit on. Oh, if you're using a comp from 18 months ago, you're going to want to look at a 2-year trend chart. Why? Number one, is because you want to see what the market was doing when that comp sold. But also, you get this. This wasn't here before. If you're just looking at 1 year, we're only going to show you 0 to 12 months. If you need 2 years, we're going to show you that. If you're doing a retro or you're really complex property and you're looking at 5 years, you can figure out what the time adjustment was 5 years ago. Okay. Okay, so let's go quickly to one more demo. This is going to be a rural property. We've had a lot of appraisers who talk about how in their market they don't have enough data. And I've seen comments on Facebook, I'd like to see the GSEs do a market analysis in my market with 4 sales, you know? So hang on, let me get back to this. So let me enter in. I'm going to do a rural property. It is in a market of only 5,000 people. Road. It's in Massachusetts. It's 20 miles from the nearest town of 1,000 people on either side of 100,000 people. So if we look here, we zoom out, Boston's way over here. You got Springfield. I don't know how to pronounce that. Worcestershire. I don't know. Anyway, so you can see this is definitely a very rural market. You can see there's very few home sales, but the tool has expanded out significantly. Like if we were doing one in Springfield, you'd only see home sales, 6,000 would be here, but it's expanding out to really figure out what's going on. So I'm going to speed up a little bit because we're running late once again. So I see here P10. I look at that and I go, uh-oh, home sales are really scattered. Maybe I look at P12. Again, home sales are really scattered. So I'm just going to start pretty broad. And so maybe I come up through here, I come down, and I'm looking at this rural area. And I say, like, this is my starting point. Again, I'm going to iterate this based on what the data tells me, but I need to start somewhere. And so that's where I'm going to start. I'm going to apply some filters. 5, 3, 2. And then I want to apply a sale price filter to get rid of some of the outliers. So maybe I go 100,000 to 400,000. And I'm going to click create heat map. Now, I only have 61 properties. I should have stopped there and showed you that. But sometimes in a rural market, you work with what you got. So is this tool as good as when it's in an urban market? No, it's not as good. But I guess the point that I would like to make is it is 20 times better than if you don't have a tool at all on a rural market. Like nothing works as good in a rural market. But if you try and do a rural market analysis without a tool like this, it's tough. I've been there. It's tough doing it with, you got 6 home sales and 3 miles away and you're struggling. So, okay, let's look at this. So we have 61 home sales in the last 12 months, but we got some red here. And so I want to use the heat map to help me iterate on these boundaries. And so I'm going to now, and I don't know, maybe somebody from this market might know. The tool does not know school district boundaries. It doesn't know county lines. It doesn't know cities, zip codes, census tracts. It doesn't know any of that. All it knows is features and sale prices. And so it's learning that there's this line here. And my guess is there's a county line. I probably should have looked that up ahead of time. But there's something going on here that's separating these properties here are selling for more. So I'm just going to quickly iterate on that subject submarket. Maybe I come around something like this. I now have 144 properties over the last 5 years. I'm going to update the heat map. It's going to retrain the model, reapply it. Okay, and I feel good about this. So this is probably where I want most of my comps. I probably don't want to look east to find comps on this property. But more importantly, if I go to market analysis, the real problem is that I only have 18 home sales over the last year. And so if I look at 1 year, it's pretty flat, but I don't have a lot of home sales. And you can see a lot of green. I don't have a lot of confidence in that either. But if we come back here and I show you where these other properties are coming from, if I turn this CS on, it's grabbing all of these other properties from all of these other markets. And so now when I go back, I have 72 sales in the last 12 months. So I have significantly more data, way less green, meaning the model is way more confident as to what's going on in the market. I love that. And so again, if we want to iterate on the, or if we want to constrain our market area, like for example, if you wanted to say like, I don't want any of these over here for whatever reason, I don't want anything down here. This is very similar up here. Maybe you want to constrain that and you want to say like, okay, maybe it's this band between these two major cities that you say is your market area. And if I'm looking for a rural property somewhere in here, I'll be looking up here too, because there's not going to be a lot of them. I just don't, the city folk aren't going to want this and the rural folk aren't going to want city. So maybe this is my market area, but I've still grabbed another 278 properties. Okay, I want to go back to the slide and kind of wrap up here, I think. Let me see what else. Heat map features, let's skip that for now. Okay, we talked about what does this tool need to have. I want to just reiterate now that you've seen it. Like this is all the things that are happening. You've got a data-driven approach to defining your market area. You have a way to collect more data. You have a way to collect not just more data, but more relevant filtered data. You have trends based on adjusted sale prices and contract dates. You have a nonlinear trend line, and you have your time adjustments for your comps. Excuse me. You include pending sales, so you can really fine tune what's going on in the most recent trend in the market. You have intuitive heat maps and charts that are easy to visualize and present to your client to show them what's going on. And it's a time efficient process. I've been talking for 45 minutes, but I showed you this can be done in 3 minutes once you get good at it. You get some stuff for free. So you get the total integration, you get the PDF export, top of page 1, top of page 2, 1004 MC, you get the commentary. All that is coming hopefully by the end of the day tomorrow. That will be live. You get comp selection for complex properties. Use that heat map to your advantage to figure out where should I go look for the additional comp because I can't find enough in my subject submarket. ROV defense, you get a reconsideration of value from your client. That heat map is extremely valuable to show them like, you just provided me 4 comps in a red area. This is why I didn't use those. And then I'm super excited about this. You get great data to fuel Synapse. And so we've learned that with Synapse, when people who use Synapse, and if you're not using Synapse, please check out Synapse. It's a really cool way to support your time or your feature adjustments. We're going to integrate. You just spent all this time defining your market and grabbing the right data, a lot of it, and really good data. We're going to be able to export that into Synapse. You're going to click a button. It'll open up Synapse in another screen. It's going to fill out all the subject property info for you. It's going to upload all that really good data into Synapse. And the results and the range within Synapse should get better, way better, because you're not uploading either 30 properties and Synapse is trying to figure out adjustments and it's not enough data, or you're not uploading 500 properties of sales that sold between 200,000 and 2.5 million. So super excited about that integration and that efficiency. Quick takeaway, the level of rigor that goes into TrueTracts to analyze a market should give you the confidence you need to utilize the trends and the time adjustments derived and improve the quality and the credibility of your report, and you can do it in minutes. 2 more slides. Spark. We have 3 awesome tools. Spark, the leading tool for market conditions, comp import export, and cost approach prior to today. TrueTracts leapfrogs that 10x for market conditions analysis. So right now, I would recommend using Spark as the most efficient tool on the market to import and export your comps quickly and efficiently into the grid. The settings, there's settings galore where you can customize it to get that data exactly how you want it in the grid. And you can also do a really quick, efficient, well thought out cost approach there. we recommend you using TrueTracts. Again, TrueTracts is free until probably May or April, or May or June, but use TrueTracts to define that market, gather that data to fuel the analysis, do the market trend analysis, get your time adjustments, fill out the 1004MC if you have to, and then use that integration, which is coming, we're hoping April 15th. So you have less than 3 months where there's going to be a huge synergy between these two products, where you can just quickly jump into Synapse and you can get your feature adjustments analyzed. Quick announcements, and we'll go to questions. So this is in beta until February 4th. This is my old slide. I should have updated that. So tomorrow, or I keep saying tomorrow, I think. Monday afternoon is our goal for when we're going to push this out of beta and have support for condos, townhouses, and the integration with Total, the export of the PDF, the pendings, all that stuff. Tuesday morning, you get up, it'll be waiting on you, hopefully. 47% of the country has access today. We have the MLS feed for 47% of the country. Another 40 to 45% of you will have access hopefully in early March. We're pretty confident early March. We're shooting for March 1st, but at that point, we will have close to 90%, maybe a little more than 90% nationwide coverage for this tool. To sign up, go to truefootage.tech/tools/TrueTracts. There you can click a link and it will show you the MLS coverage button, coverage page. I'll just show you that real quick. Anything in green is live today. Anything with an asterisk is coming in March. So you could scroll through and you can kind of see those MLS. If you're not in one of our coverage markets for TrueTracts today, Spark, which was already the leading tool to do market analysis, it's been updated today to handle these nonlinear time adjustments. Brandon and his brother, they did this update. They've been working on it for a month. It's really cool. So please check that out. Use that until this is ready in your market. I think this is better once this is ready, but I think like Spark is way better than any alternative to use right now. And so I suggest you use Spark if TrueTracts is not available in your market. There is free trials for Spark as well. Support office hours. So every day at noon, with the exception of a couple days here and there, I'm going to be on office hours. I would love to have you join. We've been having an average of 3 to 5 people a day. They come in, I either do a demo for them of a random property, or we do one of their properties in their markets live, and I work with them on the tool. It's been awesome. I'm actually having a blast doing it. So please join me on those office hours every day at noon Central. You just simply, when you're in the tool, you click the question mark, here's the link, you click the link at noon, and you get right into that meeting. So very simple to join the meeting. Join our Facebook group, Spark Synapse TrueTracts Users Forum. We're posting updates and demos and examples every so often in there. And then YouTube. If you go to YouTube, we have a training, and I just want to show you this. So this is a 50-minute training where I just focus on the tool. There's nothing about a GSE update. It's just how to use the tool. And we have time-stamped all of these things. So if you just have a question about like, what is an SS, what's a CS, and you want to jump to that part, you simply click that and you can go to that section. You don't have to go back through and watch the whole thing. I think that is it for me. Yes, so Isaac, I will turn it over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. We've got a lot of questions here, so I'm going to try to just pick a few of them out. This first one says, I think this tool is very useful. However, I need some additional basic training. Is there a way to learn this program?
Yeah, so I just touched on that. If you go to our YouTube page, it's youtube.com/ I don't know, search for True Footage. I think it's at True Footage Tech is the name of the YouTube channel. But search for True Footage Appraisal. You'll find the YouTube channel. Once you get there, if I click here, it's one of these first videos. It is this video right here. That's the one you're going to want to watch. This was the webinar we did 2 weeks ago. And then there's some other, an example of me doing a rural property and some other things, but this is the one to learn.
And did I hear you say you host office hours for an hour every day?
Noon to one. I am sitting here working with appraisers on TrueTracts, and it's been a lot of fun. The feedback's been great. So bring your questions. No questions are too dumb. I've been working on this for a long time, so I really understand it, but it takes a little bit up front. You forget what's the CS again? all of those questions, bring them. Or, I can't figure out this, I'm drawing this heat map, but it's only given me whatever. Bring that problem, bring the link. You can always just share your link too. You just copy the link at the top and I can open your session up.
And that's noon to 1 Eastern time?
Central, sorry, noon to 1 Central. Did I not? I probably didn't. Yeah, noon to 1 Central.
Okay, this next question is, does the software tell you the neighborhood boundaries that need to be disclosed in the market section?
No, this does not tell you those. The neighborhood boundaries are up to you. What happened to the session I had open? Hang on. I can't remember which session I had open. No, so if this were your example, if you want this to be your neighborhood, you're going to have to describe those boundaries. So you would say Camelback Road to the north, you would say 15th Avenue to the west. No, you still have to type those in. We'll work on something in the future where we would export the actual boundaries, but you have to type those boundaries into the form in the neighborhood section.
Okay. And then there's a lot of questions about kind of what this tool integrates with. It sounds like there's some discussion about incorporating into Total. What about folks who are not using Total, say ACI, Bradford, or one of the other software forms?
Yeah, so right now the only form filler we integrate with is Total. But if you don't use Total, you still get this, which you can simply add as a PDF to your report. So you're going to get this, this is what goes into Total, really. It's just going to go into the report. Whereas if you're in Bradford, you might have to say insert PDF, click the PDF, and then this goes into your report for you. And then the only other difference is when I showed the 1004MC, we can't put that data into Bradford for you, but we can still show it to you. So all you're doing is just typing those 27 fields.
Okay. And one of the questions, I think a number of appraisers have chimed in, I think on the feature search, you've got a price range between 300 to 1800, or sorry, 800. And this individual says GSEs historically will not allow a price range search. Why is that part of your search criteria, and will that get us into trouble? They typically have issues with searches by price point. So do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yes. So no, it won't get you in trouble, but I also understand where you're coming from, and you are not supposed to search by price. But what we're doing is removing outliers. We're not searching by price. We don't have this predetermined number in our head that this property is worth 500, and therefore I'm going to remove everything below 4 and above 6. What we're saying is we're looking at this data distribution, and we see these chunks on the edges, and we want to get rid of those. And what I just wanted to show you is I just got rid of those. So if you don't want those filters, you don't have to. We've learned that it helps train the model better, but you can still use it. It came out with the same kind of pretty much the same results without those filters. I just removed, you can see here, I removed all the sale price filters. It's just that these homes over here, before I had cut off the 800,000, above 800, because I didn't think they were relevant and they seemed to be outliers. It's no different than if you're in Spark and you're looking at a trend and you see one of the homes that sold for way more and you want to remove it from your trend. You're removing it because of price, but you're removing it more because it's an outlier in price. And so I don't think the GSEs would have any issues with sorting by price as long as it's to remove outliers and not because you have this predetermined opinion of value and you're trying to sort it based on.
How do you think this is going to work in non-disclosure states?
So we're using MLS data, and so we don't know public records, obviously, in non-disclosure states, but we know what they sold for based on the MLS. So it's been working fine.
Okay. And then I know that you have mentioned this in your presentation, but do you want to remind us again which markets you're serving or where appraisers can go to see if their market is on the list?
Yep, you're going to go to this URL, which is if you want to go the short route, the quick route, you go to True Footage, you go to Appraiser Tech, you click on, hang on here, TrueTracts. current MLS coverage, and that gets you to that screen I was just on, and then you can go through here.
And it sounds
But
like
even if
by March 1st, you're hoping to be covering 80 to 90% of the United States.
March 1st would be a exciting goal. March for sure is a super realistic goal. So we're pretty confident at some point in March. We're really hoping for March 1st. But even if you're in one of these that have a star and they're coming in March, sign up and we'll notify you when it's ready. Join the Facebook group so that way we can announce when exactly that's ready so you can start using it. And you can sign up and play around today. It's free. So if you want to sign up and you want to explore like Phoenix, you can just pick random properties and play around with the tool and start to learn how it works.
Okay. All right, everyone. I know that there's a lot more questions in the chat box, but we're already over time. So I'm
Real
going to
quick,
wrap.
Isaac, so I'm going to get those questions and I will do my best to try and get an answer for everybody. So we will go back through those questions and try and get you guys answers to your questions, and we'll email them to you.
Yeah, I love that. And I would encourage anyone attending, if I think Paul's really generous to offer his time on the office hours. So if you wanted to chat with him or check in with him, it sounds like every day he's available for an hour. So thanks, Paul, for your time, and thank you everyone for showing up. We had over 600 folks signed up today, and over 600 folks show up today, which is it speaks to the incredible amount of interest that we have in this. So thank you all, and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.